Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cantina Corner. Today I'm going to give you my review of episodes 3 and 4 of Maul, Shadow Lord. Let's get to it. Real quick spoiler warning, if you have not watched those episodes yet, I am going to spoil things here, so please come back and watch this video later. I don't want to ruin anything for you. But with that out of the way, let's talk about it. So episode 3 is titled Whispers into the Unknown, and it picks up exactly where episode 2 left off. If you remember, and the recap reminds us where we left off, Devon had escaped her cell, and I actually thought at the end of episode 2 that everyone was gone, but Vario is actually still locked in his cell. And it becomes clear within 5 seconds of this episode starting that no time has passed at all. Devon steps out of the cell, out of the back of that tube that we were talking about last week, and immediately Vario notices she escaped. He wonders how she escaped, and she looks up and she notices that Rookcast and the hired muscle are kind of standing there looking over her, and they kind of nod in the direction of a closed off room, and she is directed to go over into that room. Maul is waiting for her in that room. He wants to have tea with her, but of course he really wants to start training her. He wants to start indoctrinating her in the dark side, so he's still carrying that forward from last week. She reluctantly goes in there, the door seals behind her, and they start having a conversation. Before we get into the rest of the story, I want to talk about a few overall things too. The art style, again, I want to touch back on that. I read in an interview, or I heard in an interview this week, that Dave Filoni described the art style of this show as more chewed. And I think that's a really good description. Chewed. It's the show, everything, the edges look rougher, everything's dirtier and grittier, even the hand-drawn stuff, you can tell that they are intentionally making it a little less clean, a little less sharp than things we saw like in the Clone Wars and Bad Batch and Rebels. It's all a little bit dirtier, a little bit rougher around the edges, more chewed. I think that's a great description from the master himself, Dave Filoni, who's created all of these animation shows all the way back to Clone Wars, at the right hand of George Lucas. So really cool description there. And also I learned this past week that some of the elements we're seeing in these shows are hand-drawn matte paintings on glass, just like they did in the original trilogy. So even though these are computer animated cartoons in 2026, they're still using that hand artistry for some elements of this show, and I think it really shows. It's really, really cool. And now that I know that, as I'm watching the show, you can tell, not in a bad way, but you can tell when there's like a static background image that it's hand drawn and not created in the computer, which both are amazing skills for artistic style. But just being able to know that some of that is actually hand drawn and created is really cool. So I really love that about the look of this show. It just continues to look fantastic week to week, episode to episode. But the episode picks up with Devon escaping, Vario still imprisoned in his cell, and he notices and he wonders how she got out. A Rookcast and the Muscle, the other Zabraks and the Mandalorians kind of have the high ground and are looking down at her, and they nod to a room off to the side, and she goes in there, and that's where Maul is waiting for her. And excuse me. She goes into the room with Maul, and she finds him sitting down, and he wants to have tea with her. He's got tea set out. And he also has half of his lightsaber staff, the newer half, detached, which we are shown very purposefully in the visuals that the show gives us, and Devon notices it too. Devon reluctantly goes into the room. The door seals behind her. She starts talking to Maul. He notices her injuries, and tells her that he's concerned about her, and he talks about how maybe her perception of him and his reputation doesn't align with him showing concern for her injuries. And he tells her he's capable of being that person that she believes him to be. Basically threatening, hey, if you want me to be evil, I can be. But he's trying to be gentle. He's trying to show some compassion because he's trying to lure her over to his side. But she calls him a murderer. And he says, well, we do what we must. And he says, perhaps in the days since the Jedi have fallen, you can relate. And so he's hearkening back to that first episode when we see her steal the fruit, which isn't something a Jedi should have done. So even that's a small example compared to murder. He's pointing out that they're not that dissimilar, and that her reality is forcing her to compromise her beliefs a little bit. He speaks to her about how she should feel betrayed about her future and her destiny being taken away from her. He tells her about how Darth Sidious killed his brother and his mother, Mother Talzin, his brother Savage Opress from the Clone Wars when we saw them killed. And we see Devin looking down at the detached lightsaber hilt during this conversation. She's pretending to listen, but she's obviously trying to escape, figure out her way out. She grabs a lightsaber with the Force, and she says to him, "Delightful conversation, but I'll be going now." Maul says, "This is wonderful. He can use this." The fact that she's picked up a weapon against him. She's shown aggression, right? And we cut to the opening logo as the lights go dark. And we get the title of this episode, Whispers into the Unknown. So that's what we get for Maul and Devin at the beginning of the episode, and then we cut back to Lawson in police headquarters. Two Boots is reporting that he is recharged and ready for duty as he hands Lawson a new cup of caf. Lawson brings him up to speed on the pursuit of Maul, and Two Boots reminds Lawson about his son's sports match. He says that they can split up, and Two Boots will continue the investigation while Lawson goes to his son's sports match, which is basically Star Wars lacrosse, from what we can tell. So they do that, and we cut back to Devin with Darth Maul. The lights are out. The only light in the scene now is the red glow of the lightsaber. And Maul continues to talk to her and plants more seeds of doubt. Talks about how she was trained vigorously to achieve something only to be denied it. And we see Maul in this harsh, dark environment with only the red light of that saber illuminating him. And that's probably one of the most sinister, evil images of Maul we've ever seen. The way he's lit in this scene. And it's noteworthy that the half of the saber staff that Devin was allowed by Maul to gain was his newer staff, the newer half, not his original saber. So he seems to still retain that original saber for himself. I point that out because it's interesting. We don't know yet how, but by the time we see him in Solo at the end of the movie, in that little cutscene, he no longer seems to have that original saber staff half anymore. He seems to have a totally new hilt at that point. At that point, it looks like it's constructed out of possibly this newer half. It's a little hard to tell, but definitely part of it is from an Inquisitor. So we could see him lose that original saber in this show, in this series, either this season or next season, at some point before it wraps up. Which would be interesting only mainly in the sense that would be kind of his last connection to his time as Darth Sidious' apprentice, right? Losing that last little bit of his history. It'd just be himself at that point. Wouldn't have anything physical left to remind him of when he was second most powerful Sith in the galaxy. So I find it interesting that he's still got that original half of his original saber, and he still seems protective of it. That's the half that he favors, it feels like, most of the time. But it's going to come up again later on in these episodes. We're going to come back to that. We get a real quick scene now between Rookcast and Vario, where she tells him that they need the location of the Pike's next shipment, and he smiles because he knows he still has something of value to them. We cut away to Two Boots and another officer who are approaching some Pikes that are roughing someone up in the street, and they tell him that they're sending a message from Marg Krim, and they kill him. Which causes the police to open fire and a shootout ensues. During this shootout, we get to see again how capable Two Boots is physically. He's got all these acrobatic skills. It's clear that these police droids, and Two Boots in particular, are much more like assassin droids than protocol droids, or even battle droids. They have a lot more physical skill, a lot more ability to climb over walls, to make long jumps, and just to really get to different parts of the action quickly as needed, in particular Two Boots. Rookcast launches a grenade from a rocket launcher, and it blows up and injures one of the human officers, but he's not killed, and Two Boots pursues them. He gives more examples of his skills as he's dodging blaster bolts and incoming fire, but he's unable to prevent them from escaping. Meanwhile, we get back to Lawson at the sports arena, and we see that his son is out there. They talk briefly in the tunnel. He tells his son he'll stay in the tunnel to watch the game from the field level, closer to the action. Obviously, it's also convenient to the exit. But he's watching his son. His son's happy. His son goes out to play, and we hear the PA announce that his son scored a goal. But in the meantime, Lawson has been informed that he's needed back at the scene of the crime, and he leaves. But before any of that happens, Master Daki shows up, and he's approaching Lawson from behind, and they have an exchange. And Lawson had seen him in episode 2 when the bridge collapsed, and he used the Force. And so it's obvious that Lawson already suspects that this guy is a Jedi, but he doesn't have proof yet. They have a conversation, and Daki warns him that Maul is not something that that Lawson is prepared for, that he's ever encountered before, and that he's dangerous. Lawson and Daki talk about how Lawson doesn't want the Empire coming to the planet. He knows that there'll just be trouble. And again, we hear that Riley scored a goal. Riley is Lawson's son's name. But by this point, Lawson has already left. And as Riley comes up to wave to his father in the tunnel, he sees that it's empty. We cut back to Maul and Devon. And this is where we hear some references to episode 1 again in some of the audio cues. Some Duel of the Fates notes, some of the sound effects that were used when Maul appeared on screen during the Phantom Menace. So interesting that they keep calling back to those sound cues. And she's still trying to find him in the dark. And Maul kind of rubs it in Devon's face that she has to live off of the kindness of others, that she's begging for scraps when she used to have the comforts of the Jedi Temple and the Republic. And he's planting this resentment, and he's drawing comparisons to himself, trying to get her to come over to his side. Lawson and Two Boots regroup, and Two Boots gives them information on the direction that the Maul's forces were last seen, and they head off in that direction. And Two Boots, as they're traveling, talks to Lawson about how when the Republic was still around, they could contact the Republic and they would send Jedi in. And he's basically suggesting, why do you think it's any different if we contact the Empire? They'll send help. Of course, we know the kind of help the Empire is going to send, and so does Lawson. But maybe he doesn't know yet quite how extensive it's going to be, like we do as viewers, because we know about the Inquisitors, and he probably doesn't know about those yet at this point in the timeline. But we know that those are coming. We've seen those in the teasers, and those are the equivalent of Jedi that would be sent in the Empire's rule. But they aren't concerned about the welfare of others. They're only concerned with hunting down the Jedi. So that's why they would show up, not because they want to help the citizens of the planet, but because they want to hunt down the Jedi. So Lawson seems to know that, even if he doesn't know about Inquisitors specifically yet. He knows the Empire's bad news. Two Boots apologizes for almost superseding Lawson's authority. But if a droid can sound sarcastic, Two Boots definitely is one that can, and you can kind of tell he doesn't really mean it. He still really wants to bring in the Empire. He's got protocol driving him as well, but he also has this sense of loyalty to his partner, so he's torn. We cut back to Rook and Vario is talking real fast, which Rook says to him kind of sarcastically, "Do you ever stop?" And he thinks about it for half a second and says no, and he starts talking real fast again. Vario and the Pikes start communicating after Rook informs him that they've been trying to reach him. Spybot kind of is the he's the holo transmitter for this conversation between Vario and Marg Krim, and this is where we get our first look at Krim, and he speaks to Vario over the holonet. And at this point, you get a good look at Spybot, and I've decided he is basically a blend of a traditional UFO and a chicken. He has these little bitty chicken legs that descend from the bottom that he can walk around on, and his head pops up and tilts around like a chicken head. So I think UFO and chicken, you cross those two together and you give him a funny voice, and that's Spybot. And I just love this character. I think he's so fun. So again, we get a good look at him there. And he's being used to facilitate the conversation between Marg Krim and Vario. We cut back to Police HQ, and Lawson is told by his chief that Two Boots is trying to go around him and contact the Empire through her, but she's shutting him down and assigning him to desk duty. And then we go to their desks, and we see Two Boots kind of just doing clerical work at his desk, and we see on his desk an image of him and Agent Lawson. And Agent Lawson has an image on his desk of himself and his son, and his presumably ex-wife. So who we learn, actually, not think, but we find out is working for the Empire now. So that's going to probably come into play later on too. But just like a family photo, like any of us might have at work of our family, Two Boots has an image of himself and Lawson. He has feelings. He has emotions, more so than probably any other droid. We've only known this character for a week now. We've had, less than 2 hours of screen time with him total. And already there's so much personality in this Two Boots droid and character, and it does make me worry. We fell in love with K2 in Rogue One, and he doesn't survive. Like, nobody in that in that movie, of course, survives. I worry for Two Boots. I think that he could easily be a character that doesn't survive this season. He's a droid. It's easier to get away with killing a droid. Not that they're going to hold back from killing anybody, I think, in this show, but I think he's a likely candidate to not survive. We'll have to see. But he's also a droid. They can be rebuilt. I just know right now I'm really enjoying this character too. Two Boots is really fun. So we get that glimpse of the image of Two Boots and Lawson, and indicating how strong that relationship is, even from Two Boots' side as the droid. And we cut back to Devin and Maul, and she's nearly escaped at this point, but she can see the exit, but Maul shows up and blocks the exit, and it's there's a classic Star Wars bridge over a chasm, and she draws her lightsaber, which is really Maul's lightsaber, and ignites it. And Maul obliges her and ignites his, and they have a fight on this catwalk, on this bridge. But he's clearly toying with her. He has one hand behind his back. He's besting her at every opportunity, multiple times during the fight. He points out he's still using the fight as an opportunity to talk to her, and he points out the future she was robbed of again, kind of planting again all these seeds of doubt. And at one point, he's bested her, and her back is turned, and he lowers his saber over her shoulder from behind, almost like he is knighting her. He doesn't raise it over her head, and it's obviously a threat because he could easily slash her head off from behind, but it almost feels like, a step towards knighting her, towards taking her formally on as an apprentice. So I thought that was a cool visual image there. But they continue to fight. She eventually escapes. She tries to run towards the exit, and he seemingly lets her at this point. But he calls his lightsaber back to his hand from her with the Force, and he says to her, I'm going to need that back, Devin. And it's important to note that he calls her by her name, because at the beginning of the episode, he asks her name. She will not volunteer it. Last week, he asked her who she was. She wouldn't volunteer information. She never tells him her name, but he still figures it out. He can read her mind at this point. And so he's discovered her identity, and that's where episode 3 is. So episode 4 is titled Pride and Vengeance. We start off this episode with Vario landing on the Pike planet in a shuttle. He's got pallets of credits to pay off Marg Krim, to make it up to him for creating such a mess back on Janix. They pick up a life form on the ship, and Maul descends the platform wearing his cloak, and he has a single lightsaber blade ignited as he comes down, and he starts cutting through the Pikes. Vario sneaks off and draws his blaster and uses it to stun Maul in the back, and he tells the other Pikes that he wants Krim to know that he's the one who handed him Maul. So the Pikes take Maul in his crumpled form in front of Marg Krim, and along with Vario, and one of the Pikes hands Krim Maul's original lightsaber blade from the Phantom Menace, the half from the Phantom Menace, and he's holding it, and he goes up to Maul's crumpled form, and he pulls back the hood, and he notices as the Zabrak is regaining consciousness that it's not Maul, it's one of his thugs, and he says as much. He says, "This isn't Maul." The door to the room they're in, Iris, is open, and the real Maul appears, activates the lightsaber that Marg Krim is holding in his hand, and twists it so that the lightsaber cuts this guy in half. Almost the same way that Kylo Ren defeats Snoke in The Last Jedi, using the Force to manipulate his lightsaber from afar. And then he calls the lightsaber back to his hand, and he joins it with the other saber blade to create his staff, and he cuts his way through all but 3 of the remaining Pikes. He crouches over the body of Krim, and he speaks to the dead corpse and says, you used to be my ally, but you denied me safe haven when I needed it after the events of the Clone Wars. And he tells the remaining surviving Pikes that this is the fate that awaits anyone who betrays him. They all kneel, and the leader of the remaining Pikes, Maul asks him his name, which he says is Colt. and Maul tells Colt that he is in charge now, but that he answers to him. He answers to Maul. So he's claimed all the power now. He has complete control over the Pikes. Seemingly, he's already got control over Crimson Dawn and the Black Sun. Everything he had lost, he has regained at this point, it feels like. And then we get the logo screen, and we get the episode title, again, Pride and Vengeance. We cut back to Devon, who is returning to the market area to reunite with Master Daki, who is down an alleyway. She climbs down the walls and rejoins him. He senses her presence. They embrace, and he gives her her lightsaber back along with her cloak, and she is grateful and thanks him for taking care of her lightsaber. Daki asks how she escaped, and she says it was not easy. And then he says with Maul's presence on the planet, the Empire will arrive soon and they should leave. But she wants to stay and help. She doesn't want the innocent citizens of the planet to suffer under Maul. She mentions Lawson, who Daki has already interacted with at this point too, and you can tell that Daki also wants to help. He still has that Jedi instinct to help those who are helpless. So he reluctantly agrees to stay unspoken, and they cut away. But it's clear that they're not leaving the planet yet. They're not running away yet. We cut back to the police HQ and Lawson, and he's talking to a coworker named Wade, who brings him a note that Daki sent him, which gives him the location of Maul. They begin to track down Maul. They begin to leave headquarters after he requests the squad, which is approved. But his boss tells him, make sure you get him this time. She knows if they don't capture Maul, they're going to have to call in the Empire. She can't prevent it. Before they leave, Two Boots insists that they need to call in the Empire right now, and he goes off to a hollow booth, a phone booth, basically, to call the Empire, and Lawson follows him inside and seals the door. Two Boots will not take no for an answer. He's actively trying to contact the Empire, and Lawson, with no other choice, deactivates him. He apologizes to the limp form, and then he leaves with the rest of the squad to go track down Maul, and he closes the door behind him so that Two Boots is sealed in this hollow booth chamber unnoticed. We cut back to Daki and Devon, who are watching as the police forces arrive. They descend from where they were observing, and the police enter the building. Spybot is observing all this. Clearly, they are expecting this. He says it's about time, and the police enter the building. The police send a camera droid ahead of them to investigate, and Vario shows up and presents a holo projector, which Maul uses to speak directly to Lawson in real time without being present in the room. Maul says to Lawson that he suspects he's a man of honor and intelligence. He offers him a truce and protection as long as they let Maul do what he wants to do on the planet. Lawson doesn't consider this for long and declines, which results in a firefight. Meanwhile, Daki and Devon are up higher in the building, and they know that Maul is somewhere in the building. Master Daki can sense it or just suspects it. Now, Lawson, during the firefight, discovers a holopad that shows an image of Maul captured by the camera droid. Maul had destroyed the droid earlier with the Force when he was confronted by it, but it managed to capture a picture. We cut back to the lightsaber fight, and Maul's getting the best of Master Daki and Devon, but as the fight goes on, his mechanical leg starts to malfunction. But he's still winning the battle. Maul manages to temporarily push Devon out of the fight, and he engages Daki one-on-one. And even with the mechanical leg damaged, he gets the best of Daki and disarms him. He pushes him back, and he falls a distance and lands on his back and injures himself. And then Maul descends on top of him, and he has him defeated at this point. He's about to land the killing blow when Devon sweeps in at the last second and blocks it to save them. So we see Spybot flying up to a window at this point, and more police forces are on their way. And he says, "It's go time!" And he unleashes his little catchphrase of "Booshki-doo," which is a fun little catchphrase that he's used twice now in the show. So he flies down and he pulls an R2-D2, and he uses a fire extinguisher to cast fog over the battle so that the Maul's forces can escape, and they use that as cover. And Maul himself also chooses to exit the scene at this point rather than continue to confront the Jedi. Lawson arrives too late to capture Maul, but he finds the two Jedi, and he sees that Daki is injured. He picks up Daki's lightsaber from the ground, and Devon, as he approached, has lit her lightsaber in defense, not knowing for sure what his intentions are. So she's just confirmed, if he had any doubt left, that they are Jedi, but he's not after them. He hands the lightsaber back to Master Daki as the police forces arrive, and he lets them go. When the police forces arrive, Lawson exits the building. It's clear they haven't captured Maul, and you can see his boss again resigned, knowing at this point they'll have to call in the Empire. But we cut back to Spybot, and we notice that he is picking up a transmission as the forces escape the battle. And Maul, continuing to struggle with his mechanical leg, uses the Force to collapse the tunnel they're escaping out of behind him so that they can cover their escape. But Spybot warns them of big trouble, and Rook tells Maul something is happening. Meanwhile, Daki and Devon are finding cover in an alleyway, and it's clear that Daki is significantly injured at this point. We cut back to the battle scene, and Lawson looks on as injured officers are carried out, and parts of injured dismantled droids that were damaged or destroyed are being carried out. But then Two Boots arrives, and he apologizes to Lawson for Lawson apologizes to Two Boots for deactivating him, which Two Boots says, "I forgive you. I hope you can forgive me as well," because Two Boots has taken the action to notify the Empire at this point. And right at this point, all of the police forces, their communicators start to blink and activate, and it's obviously a signal. And it cuts away. The scene cuts away to a silhouette of a Star Destroyer, an Imperial Star Destroyer, appearing above the city. The Empire has arrived, and that's when Episode 4 cuts to black. So those were Episodes 3 and 4. We got a whole lot more action. The plots advanced for every character. The Empire has now been brought into the scene. We have not seen Master Daki killed yet. I'm a little surprised. I didn't think he would survive this week. We have not seen Devon go over to the dark side yet. I did not expect that yet. I thought that it will take time for her to go over to the dark side, if she even does. I'm not convinced she will. I think she might be our little glimmer of hope in this dark show and never go over to the dark side. We'll have to see what happens. But Maul has claimed all that power that we talked about last week. He's rebuilt his criminal empire now. There are no other crime bosses on the same level that can stand up to him at this point. Devon, he is continuing to plant those seeds of doubt in her mind and pull her over towards his side. And now the Empire's here. So now stuff's really hitting the fan. I think I said last week I didn't expect Inquisitors to show up this week, but they, I think, are coming next week. And that's pretty much the pacing I would have expected. The pacing of this show, let me talk about that too at this point. Is a good spot to talk about it. These episodes are like 22-ish, 24-ish minutes long on average, and that's with credits and opening scenes and everything. So you're getting 18 to 20 minutes of actual screen time per episode. They are fitting so much into that amount of time. It's incredible. And it doesn't feel rushed, but it also doesn't feel slow. You know, if there's anything that people criticized a little bit about Andor, was that some of the episodes could be a little slow because they built the tension for so long. I loved that because it paid off in these giant releases each time one of those story arcs hit a climax, especially in season 2 when you had those miniature arcs every 3 episodes. So this show is not trying to really build suspense that over time like that. It's giving it to you all right away in each episode. There's a spike and a climax in every episode, and there's within 20 minutes they're doing so much per episode to advance this story. And I think that the fact that it's all taking place in basically real time, again, the show is going to cover 1 week of time by the time it's finished, is what we've been told. So there are no time jumps. We're not filling in a lot of gaps. There's miniature time jumps, but nothing major. It's not like they've skipped ahead days or weeks at any point in time yet. And I don't think we're going to see that, at least in season 1. There'll probably be a time jump between seasons 1 and 2. Just have to wait and see. I mean, they're probably still writing season 2, so they're figuring out what the story's going to be anyway. So we'll have to wait and see where that goes. But as far as this week and these episodes, absolutely loved it. Last week, I gave episodes 1 and 2 an 8 out of 10. I have to give these, I think, an 8.5 out of 10, if not a 9 out of 10. I really, again, just like last week, I can't find anything to criticize. The only reason I can't give it a perfect score is we're only in week 2 of 5, and we got to save somewhere to go from here. But we'll also rank the show. I'll rank the show at the end of everything on a scale of 1 to 10. So we'll see where that ends up. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. That was my review of episodes 3 and 4 of Maul, Shadow Lord. If you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe below. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until next week, may the Force be with you.